So this is Chatlorette 4.
Number four, which we're going to release at the same time as number three because I uploaded it to YouTube, but I haven't sent the link yet because I wanted to do this one at the same time since last week was two episodes. I didn't want to give people an episode like a couple days ago and then now. So we're gonna have a huge Chatlorette special.
Double drop.
Yeah, a double drop of Chatlorette goodness. Um, so let's just dive right in. France, Marseille, south of
Yeah,
France. They brought the drama.
they did. And we had basically, I mean, we can sort of give an outline. We had, Josh and Brian getting the two one-on-one dates, and then we had a group date that was ridiculous.
It was so
Um,
bad.
as you said, lots of drama, and then lots of drama at the end.
Yeah,
And it looks like the drama is going to continue with what they showed us in the outtakes, which we can discuss at the end. But
yeah.
I guess the first thing that happened up front was Josh getting the
Getting
one-on-one
the
date.
date card. I don't know about Mr. Josh. I'm kind of like he's giving me like wax statue Madame Tussauds realness, and I'm like, show me some personality. Other than the personality that you keep trying to force on us, which is clearly not you, give me something.
I'm not sure.
Not cute. I'm not a fan. You know, he just doesn't give me anything. I thought that date was just. I mean, it was actually a cute date. It was kind of like I felt like they needed to be a little like warmer. That boat looked chilly. I was like, I think this was like a few months premature here on the like yachting date in the south of France. But yeah, I thought their date was cute. I just thought he just like didn't really give me anything. I thought that what Andy was saying was right when she was like, I always am attracted to these guys and they never work out. It's like, yeah, like welcome to
I
you
just
know.
don't. I don't. I don't know if he knows. Like, he just seems maybe like somebody who hasn't developed a lot of thoughts or ideas, or you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah,
it's hard to say because most of the conversations that these people have are not super scintillating.
yeah.
It's not like people really talk about anything. So perhaps he's being done an injustice. But yeah, he doesn't. He's very veiled. And the other thing, have you noticed anything? Because I've made an observation. Have you made any notes mentally about his body language when he's with her? Have you noticed
He
anything?
seems very like touchy feely, but all the guys, like I feel like that those types of guys in general are always like putting their hands around the waist, like playing with their hair and stuff, and I'm that always creeps me out, regardless of the context. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of what he was giving me, just like a lot of body contact.
Yeah, what I notice about his is it's super constricting.
Mm.
Like he's always like, and I notice it because if someone were doing that to me, I would be like, you need to get away from me. I mean,
Yeah,
I would not do well with that because it's constricting.
yeah.
Like he's put her in like headlocks before. Like this on the boat, which they may have told him to stand this way, but like where he had his hands, he was
Yeah.
behind her and had his. It just always looks very uncomfortable. He's the one too who, like the very first night, like put his hand totally on her face. I don't know if you remember that. Like he just like palmed her face, like this whole like. So
Oh.
I don't get. There's something about. I think that's very weird the way he is physical with her. Because yeah, they're all physical, but like he is physical with her in a way that's very. It looks very uncomfortable to me. It's very constricting. It's like a smothering kind of like at times where it's almost like he's choking her or something.
It's
And
not a good
I
look.
also don't understand the affect that he gets sometimes where he gets really silly, like where he'll
Yeah.
start to like almost giggle or get really. I have not been able to figure out what that's about.
I
But
just
yeah, I
feel
don't.
like in general, more than any other contestant on this show, he's trying to construct a persona that
Yeah,
like works either for Andy or for the show. I don't know,
yeah,
but I feel like
I would agree.
he's like I'm gonna be this person, and he keeps really like enforcing it on people as well. He's being like, don't call me a stereotypical jock. Like, I'm a fun guy. Like, I'm super nice, and it's just like, well,
But he
just be
doesn't
a
offer
person. Like, you
anything.
don't need to like keep like drumming everyone over the head with all these different personality traits that you are supposed to have or not have or whatever. You know?
Plus the fact that he doesn't offer anything except that, like, I'm not, and don't think of me like a typical athlete. But then he offers us nothing.
Yeah, yeah. There's
So
no
it's like,
alternative.
right. So what are you offering exactly? You're
Yeah,
telling us what you're not, which I don't even know exactly what that means. Which I think what Annie means is somebody who sleeps around a lot.
yeah. Or you'll well they
I
definitely
mean, because
touched
that's what
upon
she like.
that. They touched upon that because he was talking about this girl that he was with, and her friends were saying that he was cheating and he wasn't, and blah blah blah, whatever. Like, and it was kind of like, you know, you probably were, or whatever. Maybe you're a super nice guy. I don't know, but it's just it's just not. If anything, it's not making for compelling television. Let's put it that way. If
I would agree with
anything,
that.
I am not
I would agree with
compelled to
that.
watch this person do
Yeah.
anything on
If he's
screen.
trying to sell us being the next Bachelor, I snoozeville on that. And also, speaking of boring, did he say, or did I like mishear, or like perhaps I fell asleep and dreamed something? It was more interesting what he said. I feel like when they had the conversation about whether or not they'd been cheated on, that he said that he was dating a girl who kissed someone else while they were together. Did he say that?
I believe he did. We may have to look back at
I
an
believe
instant
that he
replay of
did
that.
because I thought I heard that the first time and the second time. I'm pretty sure that's what he said, that his sob story was that a girl that he was dating kissed someone else while they were together. And I'm just like, dude, you are not bringing it home
Yeah,
with that level of anti-drama.
yeah,
Like, I'm
yeah,
sorry. I mean, I'm sure that hurt your feelings. What were you, like 12 when that happened? Like, I'm just that
yeah,
you're not getting a tear from this one for that
yeah,
story. Like, especially when you look like that
yeah,
and you act like the way that you do. I'm sure you were fine. I'm sure you
yeah.
were just fine. Anyway, I'm still gonna say, because I've been observing, I still think that Andy brings her fiercest frowny face whenever someone's speaking about a prior girlfriend. I
Yeah,
mean,
for sure.
she brings it hard. Like, that is not her resting bitch face. That is
Yeah,
active bitch face.
yeah,
Like, she brings it out anytime somebody starts talking about somebody that they dated before. I mean, that mouth is digging a hole through the earth. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
she's not feeling that. And I just think that, to me, if none of them seem to really notice, but if I were a guy and I was dating someone that made that kind of a face every time, like, you're not going to make her. I don't know. I just feel like she's a tough one.
she
She's
is, and you know, it's. Excuse me. I'm fascinated by this episode.
this show was so boring, right?
It's you know it there is that, and I do think that even though I don't know this girl, genuinely I feel that it's going to take someone with a little bit of oomph just to keep her attention. You know?
Well, and she also not just keep her attention, but I think that your observation about her, she kind of wants to be in charge, I think. She wants to put you in her place. But the reality of life is it's a two-way street.
Hmm.
And if she found a guy that she could just put in her place, well, like you're saying, that wouldn't keep her attention. But a guy who returns the favor,
Hmm.
she sends him packing. Like,
Yeah.
I still think, like, you know, as badly as it went or whatever, what happened with Eric was sort of a guy giving her something back, saying, actually, what you're saying to me is what you're doing.
Yeah.
Did not go well at all. So, yeah, I think that's gonna be tough because she seems to enjoy being the one who's in charge, but I think that wouldn't be a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
It would bore her, but then somebody who gives her something back, she's like, get out of here. So I don't
I
know.
feel like there has to be some sort of middle ground, and hopefully,
Maybe this is it. Maybe this is
maybe this is
Buddha's way to Andy's
maybe
heart.
maybe
Maybe he's
that's
the
it.
middle path.
Oh, anyway, let's move on. Let's move on
Yes. Anyway, okay.
from Sharp
So
M.
the group date. On the group date, we had Markel, Nick D. Um, well, basically everybody except for that's left. Everybody except for Josh and Brian.
Hmm.
So yeah, Nick D, Marcus, JJ, Dylan, Cody, Chris,
Hmm.
Markel, Patrick, and Andrew. So and they mimed because they're in France, and that's what French people do.
First of all, I lived in France, as you know, for a total of 8
Yes.
years. I never saw a mime. I never saw a street mime. I never saw a mime in school.
Now, Cameron, I just don't believe that.
I mean, we all know the king of the mime, Monsieur Marcel Marceau, a genius of his craft. But like, just because he was French doesn't mean that like every like theater person in France is like going around miming in the middle of the street, which is why everyone looks super weirded out. It's like they played out that they were like, oh, all these people are like so, taken aback by our like, artistic expression. And it was like, no one knows what the fuck you're doing because no one's mimes in the street. What are you doing? Like, it was just so weird. However, two positive points I have to say. I thought that Chris looked hot as a mime, which is saying a lot. Chris looked really good. He can pull off horizontal black and white stripes. What can the man do wrong? Nothing. He's perfect.
I don't know. And that may be, but the outtakes for next week, which we can mention at the end, but seem to suggest he might have done something wrong.
Well,
don't know.
Listen, she can send him packing right to my apartment because I'm fine with whatever he has.
I would love it if like he just walked in right there, right now. Because yeah.
We need to get one of them to guest
what
star
was the
on
other
this.
thing you were going to say? You said about Chris, and then you wanted to make another point about the miming.
I thought that and this is a 180 turn from where I was at the beginning of the season, but if I were to give a rose to someone during that whole miming disaster, I would have given it to Markel. I thought he actually did well on the challenge. He was charming. He was actually kind of like, he wasn't hilarious, but he tried. And he definitely took it in stride. And he wasn't like flustered and he wasn't scared. Like everyone else was freaking out. And he was just like, oh, I'm gonna like mime with this kid or whatever. And it was cute. And so again, at the beginning, I did not like Markel. But going into this episode, sadly, he turned into one of my favorites. I thought that in the past couple episodes, he did really well. So, be that as it may, I would have given him the group rose, honestly, on that date. I even forget who got it. Was it?
She gave it to JJ because Well, I tell you what, if anybody should have been a mime in like a former life or as a career choice, this guy probably.
If anyone should never speak again, it
possibly
should be JJ.
I'll tell you who I'm giving the group date rose to.
Go for it.
It's the only thing I've been deeply enamored with this entire season is the Ferris wheel in Marseille. I'm giving the group date rose to the Ferris wheel because that Ferris wheel was the bomb diggity. Like I love that.
A good Ferris wheel.
That was a really nice Ferris wheel because it was really pretty, and then the cars itself. So none of those guys are getting it. I'm giving it to the Ferris wheel.
That makes sense. And they did have like beautiful landscape, beautiful scenery. The south of France is beautiful. I love the south of France. But
it's always pathetic and embarrassing. It's probably one of the major factors why people the world over mock Americans, this show, because the stuff that they do, it's particularly heinous when they've tried to do things that are like in a village somewhere. Like when they try to venture into like third world-esque type bachelor group dates. It's horrible. It's horrible. It's so inappropriate and a lot of times you can see it on and the thing where they like always eat some weird food, that's like one of their shticks that they always do. Well, we should probably talk. There was drama, I guess, on the group date.
Well,
That's where all the
prior to the group date, JJ dropped a bomb saying that Andrew had referred to Ron and Markel as blackies.
right.
Here's the deal.
Tell me.
I think that Andrew is a douche. However,
No doubt.
however, unless he's from like antebellum Louisiana, I don't think he was referring to anyone as a blackie. Who even says that? Like, if
Right.
you,
I've never heard. I mean,
I've
I've
I've heard of it as a racial slur, just
right.
not in the like 21st century.
That's what I mean. It's
Yeah,
like I've heard of that, but like I've never heard it used. It's like
yeah,
saying groovy or something. It just, I mean, I don't
exactly.
mean it's the
Groovy
equivalent.
blackies were everywhere, but
Let's bring that back. You, not me.
yeah, no, but I know, and so my interpretation, and maybe he's just like an asshole and thought that that was like funny or thought that was clever or something. My interpretation, and afterwards they had a video in the confessional with JJ where he was like, maybe he said black guys,
Yeah,
I
I
heard
saw
black
that.
ease, and I was like, the dude probably said black guys, which is only marginally less annoying than just not straight up saying a racial slur, because
Right.
obviously, you know, referring to someone as only their race is offensive, but I felt like the person that was the most at fault was fucking JJ because he A, blew it out of proportion, and B, instead of confronting, if he was that uncomfortable with it, he should have confronted Andrew himself and been like, hey, what you said about Markel and Ron wasn't cool, it offended
Right.
me. Just because you're black doesn't mean you can't be offended by racial slurs. But instead, he was like, "Oh, did you hear what like Andrew
Right.
said?" And he like
Almost
started.
like,
It's like if you were that disturbed, then why didn't you like man up or whatever and confront Andrew about it?
yeah.
And that it would have been that. But instead, he like threw it to poor Markel, who honestly
Yeah.
I felt for because that's you know a really painful thing to go through, and he was
Yeah.
clearly very upset.
Yeah. Well, and I think those are all good observations. I also think the way that JJ told him about it was almost like it didn't have the weight that it should have had.
Hmm.
Like you're absolutely right. If he heard it, he should have said something. And in this guy's, I mean, not in his defense, we don't even know what he said or
Yeah.
anything like that. But if you've watched the show at all in the past, you know, anybody in America could have been surprised that she made those choices, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
just because based on like we talked about it, you know, like, you know, being surprised or whatever, which maybe is not good, like, but that's where we still are, unfortunately. But I think the way that JJ introduced it was almost like, you'll never believe this, like
Yeah.
almost like it had a comical kind of tone to it.
Yeah.
And obviously the way that Markel received it, you know, it put him in a really weird place because it's almost like it was delivered in a lighthearted way.
Yeah, and he obviously didn't feel lighthearted about it. And then it was up to Markel to brood about it and feel bad
And
and feel about how he was going to confront Andrew about it when really all of that could have been avoided if he was like so offended that he could have just gone from the get-go and been like, hey man, what you said really
yeah,
wasn't cool with me. Markel and Ron are my friends or whatever. But instead, it was like stirring the pot up with some drama, and the result of it
right.
was not Andrew, even though he went home, wasn't egg on Andrew's face because all he could say was that that's not what I said, which is probably true. You know, he probably said
Yeah,
something annoying, but the fact that he didn't say blackies probably makes him able to just like be like, I'm just gonna like deny the whole thing, and then I just felt that it was not cool to put that ball in
Markel's
Markel's
court.
court because it really hurt. He was clearly very upset, and he brought up all the points he had were really true when he was like, it's hurtful when I'm in a group of people and the first thing that people say to me or that, like, the people think about me is that, oh, there's, like, a token black guy. Like, that's a fucked up thing to say to someone, you know? And as I said in the first episode, I was surprised that they kept both of them because this is America and I'm not an idiot. You know what I mean? And I was like, wow, they have two black guys on this show? Like, that's actually pretty cool. And the fact that they both seemed like, even though at first I was not a fan of Markel, now that I am, I was kind of like, okay, you know, I'm okay with this. And I felt that it was just, like, rude on so many levels, and they could have had a very kind of, like, frank and open, you know, thing about, like, race and a discussion about whatever, but instead it was just, like, a hot mess of drama, and JJ's still fucking there, and I will say I felt that...
When you say they could have had a conversation about it, who do you mean what you said before, that JJ and the other guys?
That, but
or
also,
do you mean The Bachelor and the show?
But also, yeah. I just mean the show in general.
Yeah.
Could have dealt with it. I mean, to be fair, I think that Markel did the best that he could under the circumstances.
I thought he handled it really well, like, because he took it to the source, the alleged source, and then he didn't debate. He just said, this is this, if this happened, this is not okay. And then he let it ride and let whatever the truth, or the alleged truth hang out there. And I thought also what they said, or what he said, was other people will have to judge this person's behavior. Mm-hmm. Like he said something to that effect.
Yeah.
Like, I'll let other people be the judge.
Yeah.
Of whether or not, of this person.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just taking the information that was given to me and I'm responding or whatever. But I mean, I will say, at least there are a few things this season that, well, and probably last season too, that have been problems on the show that have never even been verbalized in any kind of way. Mm-hmm. So even if things are being botched or handled really terribly, at least some of the stuff is coming to light about just how, like, they've been able to get away with creating these dynamics and having it all be subtext, but everyone knows, you know? Mm-hmm. And also just the gender politics of it and all those kinds of things, the way that they pit people against one another. And it seems like in the last couple of seasons, like, more of that stuff has become explicit instead of just implicit.
Yeah.
And the show doesn't really know how to handle that. Like, how do you handle it when, like, a real person actually off the show passes away? Yeah. How do you deal with something like that when real life kind of happens, when you have a show that's racially biased for years and years and years, and then someone actually says that out loud? You know, how do you... So I think that part of it, at least,
I thought it was actually interesting that they didn't bleep the word blackie. I thought that because they would have bleeped, like, the N-word, you know what I mean? And had he said that, I would have actually believed it more, because I just feel that no one has said the word blackie, and I just
and I think
that someone said that.
That speaks to it right there. The fact that they didn't bleep it is because it has that. It's not something that currently people respond to. Like, it's not part of the vernacular in this particular time in history. And
we can, and this is a whole other conversation, but it's also not like the PC white guilt, you know, word that, you know, is like, this is how you tell that someone's racist. They said the N-word. You know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't really play into that, like, into that construct of, like, you know,
particular words.
In America. I found it interesting that they didn't bleep. That there's only one bleepable racial slur, basically.
Yeah.
And it's like, it means exactly the same thing. Why is one worse than another?
I think that speaks to the fact because no one, like honestly, like other than knowing it as a historical
Hmm.
thing, I think it's because no one, I mean, maybe people do. I wasn't aware of people using that at this particular time in history. So it's almost like it doesn't have the same, to a lot of people probably, I don't know, that's very interesting that they didn't. And I think that's why, is because for whatever reason, that speaks to the fact that it's not the attitude. It's not where it's coming from. It's not the
Absolutely.
motivation. It's particular language during particular times of history that people make a focal point
Yeah.
of an attitude.
One of the reasons why I felt so strongly about this episode from Markel is that, whether you're black, gay, a woman, whatever, we've all been in situations where we have been pigeonholed or we've been, just straight up, just whatever it is, just straight up prejudice. However it forms itself. And it's really, really hurtful and dangerous. And obviously this is like a stupid reality show with some douchebag who said probably something insensitive, but the fact that I don't think he took it too hard. I think he was just really upset. And I think that whatever your intent is, and this is about whether it's like this thing Andrew said or whether it's how it was brought up to Markel by JJ or whatever, the result and the consequence of what you do is more important than your intent. That's why there are apologies. Is because if your intent does not come across the way that it's supposed to, then you can be like, "I'm sorry, I made you feel this way," because it was your mistake. It's not your
Right.
people aren't mistaken in the way they interpret things. Like you are mistaken in your delivery of things. That's the only way that mistake can be made. Because if you are true to yourself and your feelings, if you take offense to what someone says, that's their fault. Like that's not you being too sensitive or being, whatever. It's like they said something that offended you. And, I just feel that it was a shame that at the end of the episode he went home as well, kind of like to add insult to injury, because
Yeah.
I thought that behind the scenes, and obviously, whatever connection he wasn't feeling with Andy, clearly she sent him home, and she obviously wasn't there for, all of this to go down. But I felt that he really handled himself really well throughout the whole thing, and I was really upset to see him go because I thought he turned into one of the better contestants. I also was kind of thinking how interesting it would be if he was the next Bachelor. The thing about that is that I don't. People are so weird about race, as this episode showed. Would America, and I know I and you would be thrilled, but would America be ready, not ready, but be okay, honestly, to see a black guy court a bunch of white ladies? You know what I
Well,
mean?
maybe it wouldn't all be a bunch of white
Well,
ladies.
no, but there would definitely be a few. You know what I mean?
Maybe
And
they'd have the same numbers that they do in reverse. They'd have two white ladies.
that would
Maybe
be
that's what they would
awesome.
do.
That would be so awesome to have like token white bitches like up on the Black Bachelor. As someone who works in the entertainment industry, people who works in like publicity and marketing, people pitch things to white people differently than black people, and I think it's a problem. But that's why we have like Tyler Perry, because like
Mm.
people only will take certain things and only will market them to black people because for some reason I think that black people like different things than white people, which is not really true outside of like a communal aspect. Outside of a communal aspect of like
No.
being within your community, I mean, there's no reason why a black person would like the same movie that a white person does, but for some reason, the entertainment industry thinks otherwise. And I fear that if they had, I fear that they think that if they were to cast a black person as the Bachelor or the Bachelorette, they would have to have an all-black cast because black people wouldn't want to watch it otherwise. And I don't think that's true, but I think that that's what I'm sure it's come up, and I'm sure that that's the decision that was made. It's like, oh, we would have to make the Black Bachelor, you know,
Right.
and it's just like he's a hot, interesting person. Like, why wouldn't he be the Bachelor? You know, and maybe he will be the next Bachelor. I don't know,
He might be.
but
You know, I mean, we have seen things change.
oh
You know?
Lord, I have
Yeah, I
seen
mean,
again.
here's the thing. You know, the Bachelor and the Bachelorette mangles everything it touches. So, truly. So that formula, why should it not mangle this as well? You know what I mean? Like, let's, you know, if they want to make a foray into like, I mean, they can do no right. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, God bless them. They just, anyway. But it's possible. I mean, it's possible, especially because he gave the, now usually it's not somebody who goes out this early, just in terms, usually it's one of the last three, but like Juan Pablo went out around the same time probably that he did. Of course, that was, again, massive public outcry. Like, people like, but you know, he could get the same kind of response too, because I think, I also think that regardless of how they packaged it, you know, and that's so much of what we're being offered is like the way that they choose to show us what happened, the way they choose to edit it, and all of that. But I thought that his to the camera, I mean, I think it's regretful that, again, that he had to be the one to address it, and that some of these other guys didn't address it other than in a sort of like a childish kind of, hey, did you hear what so-and-so said kind of thing. But I think that gave America, at least the segment of America that watches this show, the opportunity to hear face-to-face, not that it hasn't been said before, but in a different, in this kind of packaged, I'm trying to think of the word. It's a very shallow, superficial thing that they offer us. And within that came like some real words of like truth that were really well spoken.
Totally.
And I think maybe that will cause some people to hear it afresh, you know, to hear it in a fresh way, because it was very personal. It was very personal what was said, and I thought that was very powerful, because a lot of times the way that we talk about race is like very political, which the personal is political. But I think that was just, I don't know, it was a different way of hearing it, I think, and in a different...
I agree. I mean, I definitely have watched a lot of reality TV, and I've never really seen it, because it was so, like, unfiltered. It was truly unfiltered, even though I'm sure it was edited and everything. Like, he was clearly upset, and he said what he needed to say. And as I said before, like, you know, Black, gay, Hispanic, woman, whatever, like, it's hurtful when you're in a situation where people don't view your worth, but they view an aspect of yourself that, while is a part of your personality and heritage, is not the only thing you have to offer. And especially in an environment where you are being judged on your worth.
Yeah.
It kind of is offensive when someone's like, oh, there's just a Black guy. And it's like, no, I actually am like a really interesting person.
And I love cookies.
And I'm Black.
Right. And the way he defined himself was he loves cookies a lot. That was how he chose to define himself.
Exactly.
And he's being, all of that is being, all of his working out because of this amazing cookie thing that he's got going on. That people...
I mean, he got them cookies. He got my cookies from now on.
Well, I was a fan of his from the beginning.
I know you were.
And I think it's interesting because JJ was sort of the sleeper with the drama, because he's the one also who brought up,
started the
he's
Andrew.
He tattled on Andrew before about the phone call.
He had a burn his ass about Andrew from the get-go.
He doesn't. Yeah, there's something very kind of childlike about him. He's like a tattletale, I guess.
He's so annoying. He's so annoying.
But I guess he was kind of gunning for Andrew. Maybe that was true.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a fan of this guy, but it's true, he probably didn't, other than just being himself.
Yeah.
I don't know if he necessarily stirred it up. It was, well, other
Yeah.
than just being his charming
Yeah.
self. Anyway, so that was the group date. So you said you would have given the rose to Markel. I would have given it to the Ferris wheel.
Yeah.
Um, and then we had Brian's date, and that was a cooking date. Anything else you wanted to say about the group date?
No, not at all. I'm done.
Nick V.
Ugh, pass. Pass.
I agree. Yeah.
He's not even cute.
Oh,
He's not even cute.
Okay, I agree with you, except that I Googled him at some point and looked at him up in Google Images, not his promo shots from Bachelorette, but like somehow found like photos of him in real life, I think prior to the show. There's something about him, but it gave me a very different impression of him than what you see on the show because, you know, at the first he was like, she must have felt sorry for me, that's why she gave me the rose, and now he's like, I got this thing in the bag,
Yeah.
which is always what happens to the person who gets the first impression rose.
You called it.
They always get a really big head, but I didn't think he would. I thought this guy is such a dorky looking, you know, that he won't. But when I looked him up on Google and saw his photos, you know, from him in real life or whatever, he's got like a kind of a swagger to him that is surprising. I didn't see that coming. So I don't know what he's like in real life. And I thought she handled him really well. I can't remember exactly what all she said to him, but just her conversation, I thought she responded to him. Although then she ended up being like, come here and kiss me or whatever. And I was like,
so disgusting.
So then we have, I also thought, I just did want to mention, since Chris is your favorite, he was a real gentleman, wasn't he? When she asked him, Andy asked him to dish about Nick V, and he refused. And his reason was, I'm just not comfortable. Because she pulled the, like, would you, if I was your wife, you know? And his response, I thought, was very mature. He was like, I'm just not comfortable judging someone that I don't know or whatever. And I was like, kudos to you.
He's a gentleman.
And I just want to say, since you had a change of heart about Markel, yeah, he's a gentleman. You had a change of heart about Markel. I sort of saw a different side to Cody this week. With poor guy got mocked for being thankful.
I don't know how much he got mocked. I couldn't really figure out, because they didn't show the first part of the alleged altercation. I wasn't quite sure. I'm sure that Nick V was just being an asshole and was like teasing him, and he kind of took it the wrong way. But there is something like really funny about Cody that I can't.
Oh, totally.
He's very like goofy, and I think that like Nick V was probably just like chastising him about that a little bit, and it got under his skin.
Well, because there's almost like it seems like a little bit of an innocence or something. Like, I thought it was really, like, a guy like this, you would not think of things that he would get, like, livid about.
Yeah.
You would not think that making fun of him about being thankful would be one of them.
Yeah.
But that's what got under his skin. And that's the way he was talking. I couldn't even understand what he was saying. I had to rewind it because I was like, what words? I couldn't understand. And then when he's like, I just think like man to man, as basic respect, you just do not make fun of somebody for being thankful. And I was like, did you just say being thankful? Like, so I just think that was, I just saw a whole new, like, people having beef over like that. That's not what I would have thought would have gotten a rise out of him. And it kind of just made me, it mystified me a little bit, but I also gave me some respect for him because I'm like, of things, I would stereotype this guy, and I did. And I would stereotype him as being somebody who would get mad if somebody said, like, tested his manhood. And, like, one of the, I guess, culturally validated signs of manhood.
Yeah.
But this guy got up in arms about somebody making fun of him for being thankful. And I was like, I give you respect because that is not the thing that I would have thought, you know?
Agreed.
I would have thought, like, if somebody would have said, you can't crush a beer can up against your head, you might have gotten mad or something. But no, it was gratitude that brought you to the, like, fighting floor. I was like, okay, I
love it.
corrected. I mean, there were biases being dismantled across America, and that was mine. Like,
For sure.
Anyway, then we had Brian going on he got the other individual date and they did a cooking date. They watched a stupid movie, or maybe it wasn't a stupid
Oh
movie.
God. It looked like a stupid movie. Number one, and number two, before that segment they showed an ad for it, and I was like, I haven't seen this movie ever before, and I was like, Helen Mirren. I like Helen Mirren. Why haven't I heard about this movie? And then they proceeded to do like a 15-minute long advertorial for this movie where they saw it and talked about it and kept referencing it. And they did that thing a couple of times where they obviously like put the name of the movie in post-production. It was like, what's the movie called? The 100-Yard Street or something?
Oh, I don't even have any idea.
It was like
Which is, again, perfect proof that all of their marketing stuff is a complete fail. I never know any of the bands, and I never know any of the films. I never get any of the product placement. Other than Boyz II Men, that was the only thing I ever remembered.
Yeah, it was
called
like...
Because I knew who they were before.
Yeah, it was like the 100-Yard Street or something, and there was this amazing part where it was like, oh, we went and saw the 100-Yard Street, and then we like, and it was like very like, it was like they clearly got her to say that in like post-production, because no one gave a shit. So like, so that was super awkward and weird.
Or possibly they even had them watch another film and then put that one in, like green screened it. You know what I mean?
So awesome. I hope they did that, actually. That would be hilarious.
Okay, this guy, so I've been liking him more and more and more. But when he kept saying, like, going to dinner and a movie is like my ideal date. It's my favorite date ever. I was just like, can you stop saying that? You just seem a little dull.
Also, the second type of weird, like, bizarre French stereotypes, never had frog legs, never seen frog legs.
Oh, right. I forgot about that.
Them. And they were
well, they should have had escargot. Everyone knows that's what French people eat.
I ate escargot all the time.
Seriously.
So
that's all French people eat. Croissants. They should have had snails and croissants. Then you're done.
It's delicious. But truthfully, I've never seen anyone prepare frog legs. I've never had them. And it bothered me, I think just because, like, I enjoy to cook and it's something that I really like doing, that I was kind of, like, just annoyed. I'm annoyed with people who can't figure out I'm annoyed with people who can't figure out things in general. That things that aren't hard. And I'm annoyed when one of those things is, like, cooking. Because cooking isn't that difficult. I mean, it's to make some extravagant, exotic dish, of course, would be difficult. But to batter and fry some meat, like, you can figure this out. You can make something. Or at least have fun with it. But he was, like, freaking out the whole time. And it was really awkward to watch. Because he, like, was just like, oh, we're cooking, and I don't really know what to do, and I'm really a bad cook. And instead of being like, it's a date that ABC is paying for, they'll spring for some pizza. Like, calm down. Just, like, make a salad. And he was, like, freaking out the whole time. And it was just super annoying.
You know what I couldn't figure out why that was. And I don't know if, like, because he was super freaked out about it. For one, I'm sure that this probably was part of the pre-screening. Like, is there anything that you absolutely are terrified to do? And Brian probably wrote down, like, fry an egg, you know? And they were like, okay, he's going on the cooking date. Because he seems so, like, you know, a fish out of water in that scenario. But it made me wonder about him, because I had been liking him. If he had some kind of really super entrenched idea about, like, cooking being... He didn't say anything like this. It made me wonder the way he was so averse to it and so clear on defining himself as, like, this is something I do not do, that it made me wonder if he had some kind of really strong, like, cooking is women's work kind of idea.
Possible.
Even though that wasn't said, it just because he was so averse to it, and it wasn't just that he didn't know how to do it, but it was that he really defined himself by the fact that I don't do this.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do but you eat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you eat, so how do you pull that off? Like, you ever put cheese on a piece of bread, toast that? You know, like, I don't know. I just thought his aversion to even to it was kind of concerning.
Yeah.
Actually, they did all their they do this on all the. I didn't catch any. I don't know if they did anything like. They didn't do any sailing love puns that I recall in the Josh date. Although I will say I had a really hard time getting through that date. That was a real snoozer.
It was awful. It was so boring.
But I'm glad she was on it instead of me. Of course, he would have never made it that far because I would have taken. You know, I would have sent him home.
I was thinking that if I, like, came up with the rules for this show, I would have, like, per each season, I would have, like, one black rose that you could give someone, and just, like, a helicopter comes and just, like, takes them. Just, like, takes them away. Like, do not pass go, do not collect $200. I'd be like, this was so bad. Here's the black rose. And just, like, give it to him and just be like, goodbye. That would be my one wish on this show. Just, like, a fail-safe, foolproof out for one of these assholes.
Yeah, but it would be so hard to know who to use it on. But what I noticed that they really played up with Brian's date was they loved them some puns.
Mm.
So they did the recipe for love. Yeah. They threw that in there. And then they had her holding the limp bean or whatever it was that she has and saying that Brian wasn't rising to the occasion. And I just felt like that was a low blow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, let's not make impotence references. I don't think that's necessary. You know, that's kind of like taking your puns. That you're hitting below the belt when you start doing stuff like that. I don't think he deserved that treatment. But yeah, it was a little concerning to me how he seemed very, which I guess his background would sort of suggest he might fall into these sort of very traditional ideas about gender, perhaps, you know. But yeah, that no cooking, defining self by not cooking, I think, especially as like a grown man, if you live alone.
Yeah.
Again, not being like, you know, Chef Boyardee.
I feel like if I were on this show and I would try and, like, you know, present some sort of, like, amicable, you know, personality, I wouldn't, like, shut down and act weird the second things don't go your way. It's like, so you had a cooking challenge. Get the fuck over it. Like, it's like, aren't you supposed to be, like, making this person have a fun time and make them want you to be around? Like, if that had been an actual date, I would have never called that guy again. I would have been like, that guy sucked. Like, you know, it was like, you know.
Yeah, he was really, his attitude on the group date was terrible. Because, you know, none of them, I'm sure all of them felt to greater or lesser degrees embarrassed.
Yeah.
Like, when you're being, I mean, I think probably lots of the stuff that they do is embarrassing, but I think that was probably, honestly, one of the more embarrassing things, because there was something so different about it. Like, everybody's done probably karaoke, you know, or like the stripper date, that was clearly so ludicrous that, like, but to do something so, like, a niche sort of something that people, I think they probably all felt really awkward and embarrassed.
Yeah, but again,
but he like, just really,
it's like the reason why I would have given the group rose to Markel, and the reason why I would have given the group rose on the stripper date to Nick S.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because he had fun with it.
They took it in stride, and like, it's a dumb TV show, but like, are you gonna like be like, you know, interesting and charming and like laugh it off, or you're gonna sulk in a corner like a little bitch? Like, you know what I mean? It's just like, who would you want to spend an afternoon with?
Well, I think we know where Nick would go with that. He's gonna sulk in the corner like a little bitch.
Yeah, exactly.
He really did too. He looked like a petulant child.
Yeah, it was not attractive.
He really did. Anyway, yeah. Sometime if you feel like Googling him, if you can find all those images, to me, it was like, oh, this guy acts like he's kind of like a big deal,
Mm-hmm.
whereas when he came in here, he was, when he got around these other guys, he
Yeah.
was,
All right.
yeah.
Rose ceremony.
Okay.
Let's do this.
Yeah, so we had, unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, Andrew finally went home.
Andrew went home.
And maybe believes he was done a disservice. Patrick went home. Now, Patrick, I think it's interesting that these two guys who had so much in common were in a league of their own, a different caliber dude and the gamut of dudes and all that stuff. They both went home on the same night. Patrick,
and they didn't get dates.
Right, neither of them got a one-on-one.
Dates.
And that's true. Patrick had some choice words about himself. Both of these guys had a lot of arrogance, the two of them. And that is the one thing that they had in common. These two were the biggest on, like, I am a real catch.
Yeah.
And any girl, would be lucky to have me. And any girl who doesn't see that, it's her loss. And, she's a moron. His face-to-face interview after he got ousted. For one, nary a tear comes to this guy's eyes. I mean, he is dry-eyed, he is together, he is composed, he is not fazed. And what he let America know and the producers of The Bachelorette know is that he has had lots of people, not just girls, tell him that he has the qualities that are paramount in a husband. So I don't know, all of it's not direct quote, but I remember him specifying in the middle of a sentence, interjecting, not just girls, which I was like, that's interesting, that like lots of guys come up to you and tell you that you'd be a wonderful husband. I mean, I just think that's interesting.
Oh, God.
And then he used the word paramount, qualities that are paramount in being a husband. And then he said, she missed out. And I would just like to say to America, to anybody who's watching CHATLORETTE, that any guy who ever says she missed out, by default guarantees nobody missed out on anything.
Seriously.
Like, if you say she missed out, you're a douchebag. I don't care. Like, quality guys don't look at it that way. Mm-hmm. Like, she sent you home for a reason. Like, I mean, maybe that's just me talking. I don't know. Maybe there's probably some jewel out there who's saying, like, she missed out and it's really true. But the arrogance with which he said it, I'm just like, no, you just guaranteed that the only thing she missed out on was a big load of crap coming from you, in my opinion. So, and then unfortunately, Markel went home.
Again,
right when we were starting to... not just this episode, but the episode before, we were starting to see more. Well, and then that always happens. The more time that they're on the show, the more that you see. But
I feel like he would have been, like, if he had gone on a date, it would have been really interesting. And I feel that he was sort of like, left by the wayside a little bit when he clearly had, he had an interesting, or has an interesting personality. He has integrity, which we now know, which is more than can be said for a lot of these dudes.
And handled one of the more complex situations that's ever occurred in terms of just like, Yeah. There was so much that, like, there's a lot of stuff that happens on the show where people tell you stuff that somebody else said, and there's all kinds of bad ways that that's handled, which is always like a complicated thing, I think, in life sometimes to figure out, like, how should I address this when I'm being told something that somebody didn't say to me directly or whatever. That, just aside from the depth of what it was about, like, just handled it. Yeah. Anyway.
I agree. And he cried, which was sad because he really and he said something else, like, I can't remember exactly, but he said, like, either like, I know I'm not that special, or I know that I'm not, like, going back to. But he said something that I can't quite recall verbatim, but that was very, like, self-disparaging. And it made me sad because I was like, you're definitely one of the better people on the show, like, for sure.
Yeah. I always thought he was, I mean, well, he had the most interesting style of anybody there, but I always thought he was one of the, I mean, you know me, I'm so shallow, but I always thought he was one of the cuter,
Yeah, definitely.
cuter guys or whatever. And then as we saw more of him, it was like he has a lot of. It seems like he has a lot of personality, and
Yeah.
um, yeah. So I mean, yeah, we are okay. So in the summer, they a lot of times do bachelor pad, which is horrible. It's kind of like a cross between Bachelorette and the Newlywed Game, or something like that,
Okay.
or the Newlywed Game, but like Survivor meets anyway. That's like a game, kind of like Survivor, where people get voted off, but you get voted off in couples. So
Okay.
it's always like a guy and a girl at the end that end up, and he's going to be on there.
Oh,
This
okay.
summer, what they're calling it is I can't believe I almost forgot about that. It's usually always been called Bachelor Pad, but this summer they're calling it Bachelor in Paradise.
Oh, that's
So
what that was.
yeah,
I was
so
wondering what that was.
they bring back people like key. Sometimes you're like really, but like people who were never the Bachelor or one of the final people, but people who really stood out throughout the show. So he is going to be making some more money off of the ABC franchise
Nice, good for
at the
him.
very least.
More
So he is
movies.
going to have a recurring role. Now that show is a terrain wreck.
Now I have to
Because
watch it.
people are hooking up. They have like it's kind of like, Big Brother.
Oh,
Isn't that
right,
the name
right.
of the show
Yeah.
that CBS has or whatever? So it's kind of like that. They're usually all in except this one's Bachelor in Paradise. So it's probably going to be like a cross between Survivor and Big Brother because it's going to be on an island. But like they have the cameras where you can see people like, I don't know, the infrared or like the night vision goggles or whatever, where you can see people hitting it, in their bunk beds or whatever, and like all kinds of illicit behavior. And one of my favorite, his name was Nick too. One of my favorite things that has ever happened in the entire show happened on Bachelor Pad one year, which is what they have to do at the very end, the couple that remains. So there's all these like liaisons and stuff. And then sometimes people are like saying that they're there for love, and they're trying to find love. But really they're trying to find, I think it's $150,000 or whatever it is that's the end prize. Yeah. So what happens is they do a final show where the couple that remains, I think the other contestants maybe vote. Somehow they get to vote like in Big Brother. But then the final two have to hold up a sign that says, basically, if one of them says share, if they both say share, they share the money.
Oh, like that, yeah.
If they both say keep, neither one of them gets it. But if one of them says share and the other one says keep, then the person who says keep gets it all. Well, there was this guy who was on, I can't remember what season, he was like a personal trainer or something like that. His name was Nick. And throughout Bachelor Pad, they shunned him. They treated him like crap. And this super pretty girl that ended up being like his partner at the end, who repeatedly complained about him throughout the entire show. They get on the final thing, and she holds up her share thing. And he held up his keep. It was brilliant. I'll see if I can find a clip and send it to you, because he walked around. Everybody was shocked because no one had ever done it. Yeah. And he was like, oh no, he called all of them on it. You all. Throughout the entire thing. And so he walked away with like $150,000 or whatever, totally himself. It was one of my favorite moments in the entire show. But anyway, that's how they do that. I mean, I don't know if that's how they'll do Bachelor in Paradise, but that's how they do it. It's like that kind of a thing. It's a competition for money where they pretend to be falling in love. They also have lots of sex and vote each other off or whatever.
Sounds delectable.
Yeah, it's great. Well, I don't know who you would have sent home this week. We both would have kept Markel. I'm fine to see Andrew and Patrick go. That's good. Yeah. Who would you have sent home instead of Markel?
JJ.
If you could have kept Markel, who would you have sent home?
JJ.
JJ? Cody?
JJ.
I think that's good. Okay, I'll send home JJ also, and we can keep Markel. So in our season, the way we're doing this, JJ goes home this week and Markel stays. That sounds good. Okay, I did just want to mention briefly the outtakes, or like they showed what's going to happen, and they also showed an outtake what they showed that's going to happen in the next weeks is that they're going to bring a lie detector test in
Oh, I
and give these
saw
guys lie
that.
detector tests. And the way they showed the previews made it look like, now this is probably just the way they're editing, but it made it look like our boy Chris may be getting into some trouble.
I didn't see
And it
that,
shows
which surprises me.
it. Yeah, I mean, it might just be that they're playing it that way to like increase drama because he seems the most innocent thus far. But it does show her crying and saying, they give the guys the lie detector test. It does show her crying and saying to someone, I can't take you into next week. It's just not fair. And they do show Chris saying something about, like, I didn't tell her about this, or I didn't tell you about this because of whatever. So there is something with him
Interesting.
that is being alluded to. So I'm very. It's going to be very interesting to see this next episode and see what that is. Whether they're just making, as my grandmother would say, a mountain out of a molehill with something with him, or if like there's
Yeah.
something significant. But she does say to somebody with tears, sobs, tremendous drama, that she can't take them into next week. And then the other outtake that I thought was perfect is that they showed outtakes from this episode where a bird crapped on Josh on their
I
date.
missed
Did you see
that.
that?
No.
Yes, a bird crapped on him.
I'm excited.
And I was just like, exactly.
And
Exactly.
scene.